On this week's episode, what do we think Nintendo has planned for us for 2019? How would you like to sit in the captain's chair? And what were the best selling video games of 2019? I said 2019 time. Twice. On this week's episode, what do we think Nintendo has planned for us this year? How would you like to sit in the Star Trek captain's chair? And what were the best selling video games of 2019? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great programs. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He's the original Nintendo Switch for Humanica Media. You gotta check out everything going on today at humanicamedia.com, Humanica Media on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and so much more. It is my good friend, probably getting ready to play the Switch himself right now. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, my friend?
Oh, you mean this Switch right here?
Actually, I was meaning this Switch right
Oh,
here.
you think you're cool because you got red and blue Joy-Cons?
Yeah, I'm just really I'm all that and a cup of Java when it comes to the Nintendo Switch.
Is that a HTML code joke?
Something like that. Something like that.
Hey, I'm gonna open up by saying something controversial. Ubisoft is spineless. Did you see they announced that update today, saying they're changing that scene in Assassin's Creed? They're gonna spend thousands of dollars because less than 1% of the people who played the game are offended. That is spineless.
We did speak about this on our last episode, the Pop Culture Cosmos, in regards to the Assassin's Creed DLC. So if you want to hear our full conversation on the tail end of that episode, we kind of disagreed on what was going on with Ubisoft. I said it was narrow minded on their part as far as to actually even go ahead with that type of DLC in the first place. So in the politically correct world that we live in here in 2019, something like that was bound to come out as far as disagreement. Somebody who's playing the game that didn't want to follow the same path that they were hoping you would has a little bit of issue with it. You know what? If you want to go ahead and do those type of things, by all means. But you know what? When you've got people that are spending hard-earned cash for DLC, even if it is at 1%, they should be able to experience the game as well. And yeah, I thought that was just like I said, it was just something that was a maybe not well thought out on Ubisoft's part to have the game one way and the DLC another. To seem like it was kind of a misstep between maybe possibly two departments that just didn't speak to each other and went ahead with this. So you knew this was going to happen, my friend. It just seemed like only a question of when, but not if.
Yeah, and okay, the damage was done, and but going back and spending that because it's expensive to make a cutscene. It's super expensive. Look at how like Final Fantasy, a big portion of their budget is spent on cutscenes, and the ones in Assassin's Creed are no joke. And the fact that they're spending thousands of dollars to please less than 1% of people who are offended or whining at
Well,
the
you don't
game.
know if it's less than 1%, but it is
I'm
not the
pretty sure
majority.
it's less than 1% because that's the media always makes certain groups of individuals look like they're a lot bigger than they actually are. That's just from talking to people who have done population research. But yeah. I mean, we're going to continue to agree to disagree on this one, but I just wanted to give listeners an update on that whole thing.
But then again, it's also an investment that people are making with Ubisoft and then they put in that extra amount of dollars. Because how much is the DLC bundle for Assassin's Creed Odyssey?
It's 1999.
That's still one third more of another game that I could have spent $60 on, and I'm spending it with Ubisoft in good faith. And yes, it is a small minority of the individuals that are playing the game out there, but you knew it was going to happen, my
Well,
friend. It
here's
just
the thing, though. Here's the thing. with other games have, I mean, other games that have social things in them, Life is Strange is a big one. People complain about that, and then the response to that is, "Hey, well, don't buy the game," and it's just none of these arguments are on equal footing with each other, and it drives me crazy.
Well, it just goes to show you out there what people can do if they want to go ahead and put their mind to it when it comes to social media. They want to go ahead and illustrate their point and have it come across on a mass media scale. It can be done. And in this case, where the Ubisoft DLC has to be changed, it got done in a fashion that catered to a minority of the gamers that are playing it. A lot of them don't even care. In fact, most gamers don't even care as far as when they were playing through the DLC, but it did bother some, and that was enough to make Ubisoft change its mind. But we are, oh, okay. But we are going to have a great episode indeed. Josh and I are going to be probably in agreement when we talk about Nintendo's year coming up. A lot of great things are on the way for it, and we're going to be trying to break down some of the things that are going on. Plus, key in on the fact that how is Nintendo Switch shaping up now that it's closing in on 2 years down the line as far as being a upfront AAA console? How's it doing? How's it faring in the marketplace? We're going to talk about that as well. Also, speaking of the video game marketplace, the numbers came out from the MPD as far as for the year for 2018 as far as for the year for 2018, because we're going to talk about what were the best selling games, what were the best selling video games for 2018. We're going to break that down to some of the things that were there and some of the things that were not there, which kind of surprised us as well. Plus, we're going to be talking to the folks at Arosi, their awesome gaming chairs, including they're going to talk about the Star Trek gaming chair, which they just debuted at CES 2019. Also, as well, we're going to talk to the great folks at Plantronics at CES 2019 as well. And then last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and share some thoughts on the Royal Rumble. We couldn't get our friends on at the Heavyweight Chumps, but we are planning to do something in the near future with them. Technical difficulties kind of prevented us from doing an interview with them previewing the Royal Rumble. So I'm going to share some thoughts on the end. But if you get a chance, check out their awesome show, The Heavyweight Chumps, which is available on Apple Podcasts and so many other podcast outlets. It's a great show indeed. But we've also got a great show coming up right now for you, my friend. So I want to ask you, what are your thoughts going into 2019? What's your enthusiasm level like for what's going on with the Nintendo Switch?
I'm pretty excited actually because what it's been a year. So we're getting a new Pokemon game, a full fledged Pokemon game, and it's been over a year since we had Mario, and they're allegedly working on a new Zelda game. So there's got to be, Nintendo showed a lot of their cards last year with Mario Tennis Aces, the Super Smash Brothers. So they have to have some big like mainline titles coming up, AAA, studio owned titles coming out, and it's got to be either Mario or Donkey Kong. I'm really curious what they have up their sleeve, but I'm super excited about it. And also, that announcement that Square made earlier in 2018, where they're saying they're bringing all their Final Fantasies to Switch, and the first of those rolls out on April 4th, I want to say, and it's Final Fantasy 10, 10 2, and then followed by 12. And I'm not sure when 7 and 9 are coming out, but the Switch it's not a very powerful system, but they're putting out games that people actually want to play, and for that, they're doing really well. I did want to ask you though, because I keep hearing people talking about how the Nintendo shop has become like a place for people to throw, any old indie garbage out onto their shop, and I just want to know, what do you think of that? Do you think that that will actually harm them in the long run?
Didn't harm the Wii at all because that was a place for a ton of garbage games to go. I think the final list is over 1,000 games on the Wii, and a lot of that was just stuff that is not playable in any form or any fashion.
Oh, hold on. I was gonna ask because the joke was funny. Is Rob gonna do a Wii Quest?
Not to my knowledge yet, but he hasn't announced anything.
No, well, because it seems like that would be infinitely harder to do than any of the other ones.
Oh, tell
No,
me about it. Well, actually, you know what? If you have $100, you already got most of most of the
true.
titles right there.
The Wii was known for shovelware primarily. But yeah, man, like there because and you know a lot of they do a good job of vetting out indie games. So it's like Steam, you can literally put anything on there. You get their dev kit and you can make whatever you want, throw whatever you want up on their marketplace. But with Switch, like I know Nintendo kind of there's a vetting process that they do to make sure. But then again, a lot of the games that do make it up there aren't that good. So that being said, though, do you think that Nintendo is going to be investing more into remakes of popular franchises like Yakuza and you know how they did with Okami HD and the Final Fantasy games? You think we're going to be seeing like a maybe a remaster of Ocarina of Time or any of those old classics that people love to play?
Well, let's just say this about their vetting process. It looks like it's still somewhat of the same that they were doing with the Wii. They've got a system that's hot. It's actually doing, according to the MPD that's out there for 2018, it was the best selling console of 2018. And in fact, it had a month that was probably one of the biggest months since one of the first PlayStation 4 months that was out there in 2015. And I'll tell you what, after that, there's just, I mean, that just tells you that there's so much interest in the Nintendo Switch. It is now at a pace where it is at or a little bit above what the PlayStation 4 is doing at a similar point in time. So you've got something that's generating a lot of sales, a lot of dollars, and it's been done by not only introducing key cornerstone games that are new, but also, like you said, developing older and remaking those. We've seen the success with Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, which, yes, you could say is a new game, but a lot of that's just revamped from older versions of other Super Smash Brothers. You've seen what they've done with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I agree with you. I think there's going to be a little bit more as far as some older games from their lineup that are brought back and remade and brought out as maybe like a stopgap until they have really cornerstone AAA games that they can throw out there. I agree with you. I think there's another Donkey Kong Country maybe or some type of Donkey Kong type deal that's on the way. Another Mario game possibly. I know that's the big ticket for them. Zelda can't come, I don't think, too early enough, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. I do think that there is a lot that they can draw from. Metroid, everybody seems to be wanting something from the Metroid sphere. But I ask you this: if Metroid, if they were to focus any length of time on Metroid and put an emphasis on that, like they have in the past with Metroid Prime for the Wii, did you, I mean, they didn't obviously see the residual returns for that game enough to go ahead and warrant continuing making efforts to put more Metroids out there. Do you see Metroid becoming a key component of what's going on with Nintendo Switch? I don't, because I don't think they really have much faith in the franchise.
See, it's weird you asked me that because I was actually thinking about that recently. Metroid is like I like the game. I've always liked that franchise, but they really it's not compared to a lot of the AAA games out there today. Like look at God of War, right? God of War tells this really compelling story. Halo, not story's not as compelling, but it's got a rich world, right? Rich world full of characters and points of interest that you really want to know about. Metroid is still kind of stuck in Metroid. You know, it hasn't like there's no the graphics are updated and everything looks newer, but it doesn't have a story that really makes gamers want to play it when you think about AAA games and the way that they tell stories these days. So I'd be down to play it, but I would like to see it rebooted. You know, I'd like to see some form of it that is compelling and not just mindless, me just mindlessly playing a game for the sake of playing it. What are your how do you feel about Metroid though? I know this is something that we haven't really ever discussed, so I'm curious.
Metroid for me has not been something I've really got into too much. I know Metroid Prime for the Wii was something that a good friend of mine was playing religiously for hours and hours on end. But to me, Metroid has never really captured enough of a fan base, a large enough fan base, and all apologies to any of the hardcores that are out there, because Metroid does have a hardcore community that loves and eats up anything that's Metroid, but it's not large enough compared to the Zeldas, to the Marios, to the Donkey Kongs, to all the other major characters that are out there in the Nintendo universe. It just the Tales of Samus really just does not resonate with a whole bunch of gamers out there enough to warrant continually bringing back the franchise with new iterations every 3 to 5 years. It seems like if they do bring back Metroid in some form or fashion, it's because they're stuck, or because they're, I guess, perplexed on maybe what they need to bring out that's a familiar theme, that a familiar character that they have in their library. Because while they are bringing out Animal Crossing and, like you said, more Pokemon and a couple other things, Mario may be a year off. Mario Kart may be a year off. A new Mario Kart may be a year off. Donkey Kong, there may be something this year. A Mario Kart, there could be something this year, a new one version per se, but Zelda is at least another year off. A new Mario type universe type world type deal, that could be another year off. So any major titles that are willing to draw in even more customers to the Nintendo Switch may be something that's a little ways off, instead of coming out in 2019. So they may be stuck for a type of franchise that's somewhat familiar. And if that's the case, Metroid may be just enough to fit the bill. But as a top of the line selling game, as a top of the line selling game series, to me it just does not measure up to anything else that Nintendo has to offer. Just even Splatoon, to me, I think at this point in time, is a bigger deal in the Nintendo universe.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I honestly, I don't have any interest in Metro, at least not another one. Like, they have a lot of properties that they could,
I mean,
have.
Star Fox didn't even resonate either when they tried to bring back that
Because
franchise.
I don't think people have the patience to play those type of simulator games anymore, and it's sad to say it, but it's true. And that's not to say that Nintendo doesn't have plenty of other opportunities to create new types of games, right? You can always make a deal with, Konami and have a Castlevania game, like, that would be cool, a Switch exclusive Final Fantasy game, like, there's plenty of opportunities right there to put stuff out that people will wanna play to hold us over until Mario or whatever it is that comes out next, or even, like, like I said before, there's plenty of remasters that could happen. You have Zelda: Ocarina of Time, people have been clamoring for that for such a long time. A remake of Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, that would be amazing. Diddy Kong Racing, like, that would be another one that people would love to play. Like, there's a lot that they can do, and the fact that we haven't seen any announcements or heard anything about what's gonna be, coming our way in the holiday season of 2019, it really makes me wonder, with the exception of Pokemon, what are we going to get?
Well, and you're right, because they have the momentum right now. They are selling at a very brisk pace for video game systems. Like I said, their December really was on par. Their November and December was on par with almost anything we've seen in the past decade since the Nintendo Wii, pretty much. The PlayStation 4 has had 1 or 2 months that have matched it, but for the most part, we've not seen anything like this as far as a video game system that has gone out the door in great volume in quite some time, since the inception of the PlayStation 4, and then also before that, the Nintendo Wii. So it is just truly amazing what they've done with it, because a lot of people are getting on board with it that didn't get on board with the Wii U. And uh, you know all rights to the Wii U. Just fortunately, that was a system that just it
You
never
can
had a
say
chance.
you can say train wreck, it's alright.
Well, I remember the presentation, and you're right. That was a treat. I remember the E3 presentation, and that was a train wreck. And I think it just all went downhill from there. There were some good games for it, but unfortunately, not enough was realized when it came to the overall system is concerned. And they were smart enough to move off that very quickly and into the Switch. Another question I want to ask you is, The Nintendo Switch at $299, the base model that we have now, has been under a great deal of speculation, with other models being bandied about, a more expensive and a cheaper version being talked about as a possibility for as a possibility for being released maybe at the end of the year during the holiday season. So I ask you, is that a definite possibility, do you think, as well? And do you think it would be a smart move if Nintendo did something like that and made separate versions like they did with the 3DS?
I got two thoughts on that. One, I keep hearing whisperings of people saying that they're going to make a Switch that is permanently attached to the Joy Cons, kind of like the Nintendo 3DS XL. And I asked them why. What's the point? It's already the Switch is designed to be a handheld and something you put on a dock. Why would you buy it and not want the dock feature? That doesn't make any sense to me. My other thought is this: that Nintendo is already known for creating things at the best possible product at the lowest possible price point. And I wonder if they did have something else come out and it was cheaper, would we be getting less quality out of it?
I think we would be getting less horsepower under the hood, and for a system that is already underpowered compared to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, that to me would not be a very wise move. And we've seen a lot of ports come over. For instance, Skyrim from Bethesda, which has been ported all over the universe when it comes to the gaming world. And that really has done a terrible job at times because it's so hard to run, and the frame rate, and there are other examples of ports coming over where the frame rate is just awful. The WWE 2K, the latest WWE 2K game, for example, I heard was just absolutely awful at times because the runtime, the frame rate, are just it cannot handle in the I guess the handheld mode. Once you go from the mode where it's attached to the docking station to the handheld mode, the actual a lot of games really suffer as far as frame rate and performance is concerned when you go to the handheld mode. So if you were to make something cheaper, make something less powerful, that would not be a good move. But I personally see something on the other end where it could be a little bit stronger processor underneath, possibly sold at maybe a 349 or a 399 price point.
We're talking like a PlayStation Pro or an Xbox One X type deal.
Something like that. I see that happening. Although, if you were to get in a situation where it's like that, it would probably still only be on a par with what the entry level Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 would be like. But it would be a step in the right direction, at least as far as being able to play a lot of the games that a lot of gamers want to play on the Nintendo Switch.
So here's my thoughts on this thing. You had mentioned Skyrim, right? Elder Scrolls. So I played that on Switch. I was super stoked when I got it because I love that game. Because I had planned on going through and actually like doing everything. But my what was my game time the first time I played through that game was like 86 hours, and I had planned on going through it and just like kind of enjoying the world this time. This would be my last playthrough ever. Just go through and enjoy the world. I did 10 quests and I was only able to finish 3 of them. It was the most glitchy experience I have ever had with the game. But that made me start thinking, this doesn't seem like something Bethesda would put out. I think that it's more in the dev kits that are being given out by Nintendo. Like it's something in their software structure that is making porting these games so hard for other developers.
And we've seen that before. I believe what was the PlayStation 3 that was really hard to port over. I know there's a lot of issues with the setup with the PlayStation 3, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Sony, over the course of the PlayStation 3's lifetime, made efforts to try and change the chipset to accommodate being more adaptable to ports and to being able to run other people's software. In the case of Nintendo Switch, I just think it's the unit underneath. You're asking it to do a lot, especially when it's in handheld mode, and I'm not sure it's going to be able to run today's high-end games. And I know a lot of games have stayed away off the Nintendo Switch just simply because of that, and just because it's a performance issue and they just won't be able to run. Like, for instance, why are we not seeing Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch as of right now? At least the modern versions per se, because just because of the fact you're not going to be able to get 60 FPS on the Nintendo Switch right now, especially in handheld mode.
Right, but I also feel like if they were yeah, you're not gonna get 60 FPS, but I also feel like if these, Infinity Ward or Activision, whoever is making the next one, if they designed it from the ground up to be on Switch, like they designed a version from scratch to be on Switch, it'd be a whole different experience. You just have, a lesser, lesser graphic output.
This is true. This is true. So it leads into my last question when it comes to Nintendo Switch, my friend. And I want to ask you this: with the Nintendo Switch, and like I said, and like we talked about before, E3 is still around the corner. There's still a lot more tree houses or Nintendo Switch presentations that they're going to announce a whole bunch of stuff, Nintendo Directs and all that. But as of right now, your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch going forward? Do you think it's going to do well enough that it's going to maintain and actually keep at the level it's going on sales wise? Do you think it will have enough support during the course of 2019 that it will have just a chokehold on the industry until PlayStation 5 or whatever new Xbox system comes out that gets introduced into the marketplace?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question because I want a part of me really wants to say that 2019 is going to be the year of the Xbox, but I have a feeling that's not going to be. So, that being said, Nintendo Switch, it could be, it could be. I want to say it could be because there's, I'm looking at this list you sent me, and Breath of the Wild is still doing amazing numbers 2 years after it came out, and um, that really says a lot about what people want out of this Switch. And if who's to say that next year Smash Brothers isn't still going to be top making the top 20 game list of 2019. So it all depends, man. People have like weird taste in what they want to play. So if Nintendo can deliver something that is an experience like Breath of the Wild, and that is enough to hold people over, like that's good, And if the new Pokemon game comes out and it's absolutely stellar, then yeah, that could very well keep Nintendo, because all it really takes is one or two games for Nintendo Switch to be the dominating system. But PlayStation allegedly, they have Last of Us Part Two coming out in 2019, and then you have Days Gone coming out, and I don't know when or if we're ever going to see Ghost of Tsushima, but those could very well make or break the Sony as well. And also, Xbox has Gears of War, and who knows, maybe there's going to be some type of Halo coming out. It, it's funny how this battle is coming down to, three or four titles from each console. So I don't know, man. Like it's such a weird thing. Xbox has been so far behind because they haven't put out anything original that people actually want to play. But this year they might do it. So I don't know, man. Like I'm almost afraid to call it. I like, Switch has to put very little effort into being the number one console. But Sony and Xbox are both looking to make that comeback this year, so it's hard to say for sure.
Well, okay. Well, I will say the industry itself is doing very well. Not GameStop per se, but overall the video game industry is doing well.
Too
It gen
soon, Gerald. Too soon.
Too soon, too
Hard to pick
soon.
GameStop.
But the video games industry is doing well. Video games as a whole, like you were talking about, with the software end of it, reached an all-time high in 2018. I don't see the same type of effect in 2019. I don't think Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation 4 will have enough AAA generators, money making generators, to go ahead and surpass what they did in 2018. I still see it as a solid year, but I don't think it's going to be the same type of year that we're going to see from the movie industry that we talked about on a previous episode. And a shout out to everybody out there that yeah, listened to that episode recently. I know we got a big, huge surge in listeners just specifically for that episode that we taped about 10 days ago. So cannot thank cannot thank you enough for doing so. I will tell you that to close out our conversation when it comes to Nintendo Switch, I still think it's going to be the number one seller that's going to be out there this year. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, no matter what's put out for it, it's on the decline because of the simple fact that it's already saturated. The market's already saturated greatly for both of those consoles. Nintendo Switch is on the rise. There's still many more years left in Nintendo Switch as a viable console. I think at this point in time, Sony and Microsoft are already starting to gear up their thoughts towards the next generation of consoles. So at this point in time for 2019, no matter what gets put out on the Nintendo Switch, I still think, but far and away, at the when the smoke is cleared and all is said and done, that the Nintendo Switch will come out on top yet again. What are your thoughts out there on the Nintendo Switch? What games are you looking forward to that are coming out this year for the Nintendo Switch? Plus, also, what games would you like to see for it announced that we could be playing by the end of 2019? Share us your thoughts, Pop Culture Cosmos, at yahoo.com. One more time. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Okay, well, I just think it's going to be number one. What can I say? Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and hey, they did it on Voice for the Underground for me. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. We're coming up right after the break. It's back to CES 2019 for a great conversation we have with the folks from Plantronics, talking about all the great things that are coming up with all of their awesome audio products. Then after that, Josh and I are going to be talking about the best-selling games of 2018 and what that means as far as what was hot and what was not when it comes to what you bought out there as far as video games last year, and how that might dictate what goes on this year in 2019. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back again with the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. If you need a listing of where we're being played at, because we're being played all around the world on stations, both terrestrial and internet, check out our entire listing today at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, also Game Source on Facebook. And I'll tell you what, there's a listing right there of all the radio stations that we're being played on, because we're being played on 7 days a week. And it also has a listing of many of our over 30 different podcast outlets. You've got a great thing going on with Humanica Media, my friend. So share the goods. What's going on with your awesome experience known as Humanica Media?
We just finished recording our Topicocalypse award show, so those will start trickling out here this week. But other than that, I'm trying to catch up on the buttload of content that I've had. We've got about 6 episodes that I still need to edit and put out, so hang in there for those. Keep your eyes open; those will be out soon.
And don't forget, Topicocalypse also airs every Tuesday night on the Podcast Radio Network. Well, my friend, MPD, along with announcing that the Nintendo Switch was the best-selling console of 2018, announcing how well it did, comparing to the early sales of PlayStation 4, and saying how this is one of the biggest years ever and biggest months ever, and the latter part of the year for Nintendo Switch. They also announced the top 20 selling games of the year for 2018, and it's just, for reading it, it's very interesting reading. I'll tell you that, because it does not include digital sales with some of the titles, but from what we gather, it was still a great year for many of these titles. So I'm going to read it from 20 all the way down to 1. At number 20 for the best-selling video games of 2018, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. 19 was Super Mario Party. 18, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. 17 Dragon Ball Fighter Z, 16 Call of Duty World War II, 15 Super Mario Odyssey, 14 Battlefield 5, 13 FIFA 19, 12 Mario Kart 8, 11 Grand Theft Auto 5, 10 Assassin's Creed Odyssey, 9 Monster Hunter World, 8 God of War, 7 Far Cry 5, 6 Marvel Spider Man, 5 Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, 4 Madden NFL 19, number 3 NBA 2K19, number 2 Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and number 1, I thought it was going to be Call of Duty Black Ops 4, but this actually superseded it, which is what I thought would happen earlier in the year. But then my thoughts changed on it, and I thought Call of Duty was going to win out. But you know what? Red Dead Redemption 2 was the best selling game in the United States for 2018. So I want to hear your thoughts, man, as we go into 2019 here before we head into full blown talking about 2019 video games the rest of the way. Your thoughts on some of the surprises and some of the things that you expected out of the sales for video games for 2018.
It's not even fair for a lot of developers because you know that anything that has a Madden or an NBA or a FIFA logo on it is going to sell. It doesn't even matter. Like the game could be crap, but people are still going to buy it, and that's what's always kind of weird about that type of thing. And I love the fact too, though, that there's games that weren't, Grand Theft Auto 5 that's been out for what, 7 years, 8 years?
I think going on 6, if I remember,
Yeah,
if my
dude.
memory
And
is.
it's still the number 11 game on this list here. And I love too, like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Again, I mentioned before that was
It's
2 years.
closing on 2 years on
Two
that one.
years, yeah, and it's still on the list. Like that speaks, volumes about the quality game that it is, and that's fantastic.
Now, this doesn't include anything like Fortnite, which is a free to play game, which would, if it was just based on of downloads, would actually destroy all of these games, and it generates its own money with the microtransactions, which right now for Epic is getting them a fortune. So it's kind of comes with that caveat, and plus several of these titles as well did not enclose the digital numbers to the MPD.
Okay, yeah, so that kind of snobs free to play games, right? So you can't it kind of makes free to play games seem of lesser quality than these AAA titles, obviously. But
Not when it comes to the people making a paycheck at Epic
no,
right now.
no, but it's just the way that it looks. It's the same way that indie films don't really get the recognition they deserve in comparison with big budget movies, right? And I'm looking at this list. I've played probably about 6 of these things, but it's interesting because you can look at this and you can tell what kind of games people are into. It's sports games, it's first person shooters, or it's games that have a good story. You got Red Dead, which is a horse riding simulator. You have Spider-Man, you have God of War, you have it's true though. Like you do a lot is what. Hold on one second. My dog is drinking water right now. I just don't want it to show up. Do you hear it?
I can see it, but I can't hear it.
Okay, so I'll just keep talking then. But yeah, no, this is Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. Unfortunately, Eevee didn't make the list, but if you look at this list and you hear that whole thing where people are like, oh, people don't want AAA game, big AAA game titles anymore, it's crap. Look at this top 20 list. All of these AAA titles, and all of them have big budgets, and all of them tell stories that are compelling. With the exception of the sports games. So I think the video game industry is doing well, and if an indie game can ever get to the point where they can tell a story like this and still keep their low budget, then some of these bigger studios might have something to worry about.
Some of the surprises that I think is there is the fact that Marvel Spider-Man did finish so high. I don't think it would have finished so high if it weren't bundled in the holiday bundle that we saw so much of during the Black Friday season that was attached to a lot of PlayStation 4s. I think it probably would have ended up maybe on the backside of the top 10, maybe like a ninth, 10th, or even 11th if it didn't get that kind of help. God of War, I think they really did a good job with God of War. It finished number one or finished number two or in the top five of many Game of the Year lists. They did an outstanding job of that, and it just shows that people love quality games and that they will play it. Your game that you talked about so much over the course of 2018, Far Cry 5, even though that was all over the place with some people as far as the thoughts on that game, it did so well on the front end and during the middle part of the year in 2018 that it ended up in the top 10. So kudos to Ubisoft for that. I was surprised to see NBA now for the third year in a row is now outpacing Madden NFL as here in the States as far as a premier sports game, sports video game, that it was just looked like it's outselling Madden NFL 19, and that to me is kind of surprising right there. That's not only done it this past year, but it's done it for the past 3 years. The Nintendo games, when it comes to their sales, they are still augmented by the fact that they do not report digital sales. So it tells me Super Smash Bros. Ultimate could have finished a lot higher on the list than it did number 5. And like you said, Grand Theft Auto 5, what 5, 6, 7-year-old game, is still charting. That's just amazing. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, come on, man. This is just a revamped version of Mario Kart 8, and look at how well it's doing. Like you talked about, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in its second year, still a top 20 selling game. Just tells you what people are going for. And even Call of Duty placing not once but twice in the top 20 list still makes it effective as an overall top selling AAA franchise, in my opinion. Monster Hunter World, that was a January release, and kudos to them for actually being able to stay within the hunt in the top 20, and just shows you that if you have a good game that gets good buzz and actually is promoted very well, it can sell at almost any point in time in the year. And if this, I think it sets I think it's a precursor for what we could see with Kingdom Hearts 3 if the buzz is good on that game, because it's coming out next week, and there's a lot more going to it, and the advertising is good and all that. It could do similar numbers as Monster Hunter World. I'm not sure yet. We're going to talk more about that on the Monday episode, but we'll have to wait and see. Your thoughts, though, on the biggest surprise, because I have my thoughts on the biggest surprise out there, but your thoughts on the biggest surprise when it comes to what's either on or not on the top 20 in 2018.
Well, I am crazy surprised that Far Cry is on this list because, if that Ubisoft has proven anything, it's that, there's a lot of when it comes to gaming controversies, like it I don't know, it doesn't seem to have an effect on the sale of a game because Far Cry was swimming in controversy, right? There are people who were offended at it, people who weren't, they wanted more offensive stuff in it. It's such a divisive game, and like uh, it is terrifying in the fact that you see this kind of thing happening. What's that documentary on Netflix? Something country, Wild Wild Country is on Netflix, and it shows like how a cult actually did take over a town like that. And um but I mean, what do you think of that whole concept, though? Do you think that bad publicity is good publicity when it comes to a game like Far Cry because it's people really want to see just how outrageous it is?
That and the fact that the advertising and promotional work during that period of time was very well done. I remember the marketing very clearly, and I thought it was very well done. Plus, at that point in time, the good high profile game releases are not as plentiful as they are in September, October, November, and the first part of December. We've talked about this before on our game preview that we did last year going into the fourth quarter, that there was like a murderer's row, and a lot of games you know like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, for instance, that would get buried under it, and it didn't even appear anywhere near on this list. So that tells you right there, if you have a good game plan when it comes to marketing, and you also set yourself up well if you're a game that comes out maybe with a little bit of breathing room on both sides, where where players can just go ahead and focus on your game, it will translate into a lot of dollars. And we saw in the early months of the year and also in the middle months that Far Cry 5 was not only charting, but at the top of the list. And those sales seem to have carried over for the rest of the year. So that's kudos to Ubisoft on the way they were able to market it. Yes, does controversy sell? It looks like it apparently did with Far Cry 5.
But it was also an amazing game. Like I loved it. I loved every second of playing that game, and it had nothing to do with any of like the story was compelling. I was invested in all the characters, like they were all genuinely interesting. I wanted to go out and do all the side quests for them. Like it was a beefy game, and there was a lot in there that was just fun to play. And I think they did a great job as far as that goes.
And also kudos to Rockstar for not only having the number one game of the year in Red Dead Redemption 2, aka Josh's horse simulator there, but also as well Grand Theft Auto 5. Like you said, it got released in 2013. Just an amazing job. It's gone over 100 million in sales worldwide and 10 million alone last year. So even in it's going on its seventh year, going close to its seventh year now, sixth, seventh year. It's still doing an amazing job being in the top 20 for 2018. And if it shows up in the top 20 again for 2019, that was just truly incredible. It just speaks to the volume of the community and also GTA Online. I think that's probably the biggest thing about it is that the marketing's been done for GTA. It's now, and you now have to ask yourself, why is it selling so much? And it's not the story anymore about it. That went away as far as people having an interest into it many years ago. It's the community and the GTA Online, all the events, all the DLC, all the stuff that they continually have put into GTA Online. That I think is the biggest reason why it's been able to stay so long on the charts. It's sold over 100 million in its lifetime, 100 million in its lifetime, and also why it sold even 10 million last year in what its sixth, seventh year. So kudos to Rockstar on that as far as supporting that community. I know we've talked about it before, how much they embrace the community and how much they're doing for it. But the biggest surprise to me, and it's not a biggest surprise as far as why, but the biggest surprise was that even with lukewarm reviews and a lot of cases really bad reviews, and the fact that it was such a major disappointment, and we've also wrote about this recently when it comes to what Bethesda's thinking in regards to this game, and that is Fallout 76 being nowhere on the list. It got a little bit of a shout out for the PlayStation 4, I think being 20th overall for the month of December. I know it charted a little bit in November as well, and I think it was like a top 10 it was top 10 in November, but obviously that didn't generate enough in sales, enough to even show up on the top 25. And for Bethesda and for one of its major franchises, one of its two major franchises in Fallout, that is a big surprise. It tells you what kind of disappointment that game was. And unfortunately for the future for Fallout 76, that it's not going to have much of a future unless it goes free to play. But still, even if that's the case, that's still not going to do it any favors.
Yeah, but at this point, the publicity for Fallout 76 is so bad that I don't think there's really any way that they're gonna make anywhere close to, the top 20 best-selling games.
It's not going to make any list at any point in time in the future. It barely made the list for the month of December on one console only. So I foresee a lot of issues and probably an early out for Bethesda at some point in time when it comes to Fallout 76. But to not see it on the top 25, even with middling reviews to bad reviews, I still think was kind of a surprise to me. Any last thoughts on the top 20 before we head on out on this portion of the program?
No, I just, like you said before, I'd be interested to see if you were to add digital sales to this, if we'd be seeing a different order.
I definitely think we would be, especially when it comes to Nintendo games, which charted on the lower end of the top 20, plus also a game like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I think that would chart even higher. Would it beat Red Dead Redemption 2 and Call of Duty? I'm not sure it would do that, but I think it would probably I think it would probably surpass NBA 2K19 and finish at least third, if not higher. And then some of those other games that were at the bottom end of the top 20 from Nintendo, I think they would chart a little bit higher as well. So it just speaks to the volume of Nintendo that even if they're not sharing their numbers digitally, that they're still charting so many games in the top 20 of 2018. It speaks to the popularity of the Nintendo Switch and why it was the biggest selling console of 2018. And I'll tell you what, with with 6 games in the top 20, they did an outstanding job alone, even with just physical sales. Just imagine what their year just imagine what their year was like with everything included, including everything that was sold on digital. What are your thoughts out there on the top 20 video games of 2018? Are you like us that are happy for folks at Activision and also Rockstar for Red Dead Redemption 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops 4? Are you surprised NBA has continued to outpace Madden the last 3 years? And are you also surprised at what Nintendo's doing with so many great titles that are in the top 20 and the fact that Bethesda couldn't make the top 20 as well with couldn't make the top 20 as well with Fallout 76? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Coming up next, we've got a great interview from CES. It's our friends at Arosi Gaming Chairs. They just introduced out into the marketplace a Star Trek gaming chair that you can sit down and maybe drink some Earl Grey tea and engage number one and do all that as you're going ahead and battling everything out on your PC out there or anything else you want to go ahead and do with some great gaming chairs provided by Arosi. They talked about that and more in our conversation with the great folks at Arosi Gaming Chairs. It's coming up from CES 2019. It's coming up next right here on the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. I want to thank the folks at Arosi and also as well Plantronics, the awesome folks, and they were so gracious at both of those places, at both of those booths at CES 2019. Cannot thank them enough for taking the time to speak to me. All right, my friend. I just wanted to share some thoughts real quick because I know the Royal Rumble is around the corner this weekend. I know you're not too much into wrestling anymore, but I know pro wrestling is still a great portion of what we do here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. I will say this. My thoughts on the Royal Rumble is that it's just not generating enough enthusiasm as it once did years ago. I still think it's a situation where the WWE has to go ahead and recognize this with falling ratings and the fact that they've got Fox coming around the corner. It just, it just they have to realize what they need to do is something different than what they're doing. But for now, I think in the main events, I think Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor. I still see Brock Lesnar winning out on that one. Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles. I still see Daniel Bryan winning that, but I wouldn't be 100% surprised if AJ Styles regains his championship. Ronda Rousey is still a name to them, and obviously she's very expensive, so she's going to probably keep her title against Sasha Banks. Rusev versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Either which way, these guys don't move the needle anymore for WWE, but if you're going to go ahead and give it to someone, I'd say maybe Shinsuke Nakamura should win it back. Asuka versus Becky Lynch. I personally like Asuka. I think she's one of the tremendous athletes that are out there in the professional wrestling world. But unfortunately, Becky Lynch is extremely popular, and I think she's going to regain that back and head into WrestleMania as the SmackDown's women champion, as a SmackDown women's champion. When it comes to the tag team match that's out there, the Bar versus the Miz and Shane McMahon, that shouldn't even be on there. But I will say, as far as a fluke win or something that they're going to do, I'd probably say the Miz and Shane McMahon are probably going to take the championship just to create some type of enthusiasm.
Can
Buddy
we just
Murphy,
give Shane
what?
McMahon a shout out for a minute because That man will literally do anything. It doesn't matter how what are the odds are of him hurting himself. I remember that from when I was into uh, Thursday Night SmackDown. Shane McMahon would literally do anything. If they want him to jump off of something, he would do it. Like that guy is a champ.
Well, he does those big spots. I will give you that. But now he's approaching my age. And at this point in time, he's not going to be able to do as many big spots in the past. He is I know a lot of people in the industry don't like the fact that when he goes ahead and shows up for these 1 or 2 time spots when he shows up at a big card or WrestleMania. But the fact is there's no one in his place that could come in and step in and actually generate as much enthusiasm because they don't have big stars that generate enthusiasm in the WWE right now. And I think that's a bigger problem than anything. He's my age, so I don't expect as much anymore. He's going to try and do something crazy either here or at WrestleMania. But you know what? At this point in time, be that as it will, I think for a gimmick thing, they're going to probably give him and the Miz at least a short run as champions. The Buddy Murphy as a 205 light heavyweight cruiserweight champion, whatever you want to call it, it really doesn't matter because that the 205 division really has not been put in any type of good good spotlight at this point in time. So I guess I'm going to probably have to say, is he going to keep the title? Either that, or I'd probably go with Hideo Itami as far as a reach right now. Let's talk about the main events for the show, the Women's Royal Rumble and the Men's Royal Rumble. I think when it comes right down to it, I see Charlotte Flair winning the Women's Royal Rumble because I think she's the biggest name not involved in the world title matches. And when it comes to the men, well, since John Cena is rumored to not be involved, he's rumored to be injured and all that. I think at this point in time, you got to give it to Braun Strowman. I wish they would have given him the ball and ran with it last year when he really had a lot of momentum going for it. But I think at this point in time, a Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman matchup at WrestleMania is around the corner. So those are my thoughts on the Royal Rumble. If you have your thoughts on the Royal Rumble, or if you've seen the show, if you listen to this after you've seen the show, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, it's been another great episode. I want to thank you so much for joining me. As always, any last thoughts on the way out?
No, I mean we do need to talk about Resident Evil 2, maybe in the next episode. I'm hoping to play it this weekend, so hopefully I'll have something to say about it.
And then also we need to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 as well.
Yes, and the fanboy versus casual gamer explosion of comments in the IGN and Polygon articles. Hilarious.
Exactly, exactly. I know we're going to be talking about that and also leading into a great February with all the stuff going on with the Super Bowl, all the ads. I know a lot of people are excited about that. So that I want to touch on possibly on the PCC Multiverse or maybe the episode after that at the Pop Culture Cosmos just before the Super Bowl hits. So we'll talk about that. Just before we'll talk about that. Let me see. It's February 3rd. Okay. So we'll talk about the ads and all that good stuff going into the Super Bowl on the next week's PCC Multiverse and all that. So I just can't wait to go ahead. It's going to be another great week coming up with Kingdom Hearts 3, the anticipation for the Super Bowl, and a whole lot more right here in Pop Culture. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.